I don't know if it feels like it to you at the moment, but it is game week. There is a quasi-football game on Saturday, so let's get all of our routines back in order. Let's break off the rust. Let's get into a full blue-white game preview coming up on today's show. We've got a fun one for you, breaking news, intrigue, interest, all that going on here on the BWI Live Show. But as always, the first thing we're going to do is introduce the men that are going to give you all that information over the next 60 minutes. We have Nate Bauer. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, he is to my immediate right, I want to say. I never should do right, left on the spot because I don't know which way I'm going to be going in terms of like, is the camera mirrored or not? But below me on the screen, for sure, I know up and down pretty good. That's Sean Fitz. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Fitz, everything settled away? Everything squared away for you on this end?
Yep. Puppy's Perfect. Just being a puppy. So we're good to go. I appreciate the the entrance there.
So just so everyone knows, and the one thing I can't stand is like when you execute a good entrance and nobody heard the dog barking before the show, but I'm going to bring up the dog barking before the show. How big is that dog? Because if that's a puppy, I mean, is it one of those dire wolves that they just genetically modified? Because that was a deep ass bark.
No, she's just a jerk. She's 2 years old and she's a mix of everything. And she's just there's lawn people next door, and she met them on her walk a couple minutes ago, and now she's just decided to bark at her. So that's Frances for you. That's what she does. We love her. We have to. So that's where we're at.
Listen, this whole thing of broadcasting from home, it's like these are the things that happen.
Yeah. I didn't give her any treats before I got here, so she was just, pulling an attitude, and that's what she does. So, but we're here, we're good to go. It's actually really funny. One of our listeners, Jim, one time my dog barked on a show, and he was backing up his car and listening to the show, and our dog barked, and he thought he hit a dog. And he didn't give a heart attack, but it was one of those things. And the dog noises. I'm listening to a podcast right now that has an ad for some sort of pet shop, and it barks every time. And I look around, and I'm, I don't think dog barking noises on the show is a good idea. So.
Yeah, I had so when I was on the radio in State College, I had a no siren in the sound effects policy because there was one song that had a siren in it, and every single time it came on the radio when I was driving, I'd look around like, oh no, I'm getting pulled over. And no, never once was it. It was just the stupid song. So I totally get what you're saying. Nate, I actually am going to introduce you via a question in the mailbag. I don't think we're going to have time for the mailbag today because so many things going on and some breaking news here to start the show. But this one is one that I'm not going to be able to answer tomorrow at all because you're not going to be here. Philip in the Valley wants to know, what's up with the basketball team and the lack of portal activity other than Reed? So right off the bat, we're talking transfer portal. We're talking Penn State men's basketball. So what's going on?
I bet you don't even know Reed's first name, do you, T. Frank?
Jaden?
You probably don't either. Fitz? Jerks.
I do, but I want to see if T. Frank does.
I'm going to stall here by quickly going to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com where you can find all the answers. It starts
Josh.
I knew it started with a J. I read it the other day. I read it, but I didn't want to say Jalen Reed. And then the other one in my head was Josh Reed, who's a former wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. And I've spent years accidentally calling Geno Lewis Geno Smith. I didn't want to do the whole name swap in my head. So I didn't get it right.
Well, this Josh Reed is a former Cincinnati Bearcat wing and will play his senior year at Penn State. And they got other stuff cooking. Look, it's the deal with the portal. I think that is maybe a little bit of a misconception. Is people think that that's where like all the activity will be done by the end of the portal, and it's really you just have to enter the portal. So Penn State, among other places, will be recruiting out of the portal from players who are already in the portal well after that ends. And, I think I am at liberty to say here, Europe has basketball players, and Penn State will try to get some of those. Or one of those at least. So,
so the portal is now international. Like it spans continents.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
time soon is it going to have a wormhole?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that end of things. I just know that it is, if you look at some of the trends in college basketball over the last couple of years, even within the Big Ten, there have been success stories because what's happening, and this is really front facing and kind of makes sense, as opposed to the minor leagues, right? And professional options that have always been front and center for Euros, really, right? And other international players, different caliber. It's almost like a new league of professionalism has opened up. And so this is an opportunity that, you're like, these are tough, good basketball leagues in Europe that these guys play in. And now there's a market where, okay, Penn State, among other places, can say, hey, listen, you're making this on, on this club team, you can make $1 million here, right? Like you can make $700,000 playing basketball for a season or two in college in the United States. And, these guys are taking it. They're taking it up on that. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks and how they kind of figure that stuff out.
And, I'm going to put Penn State. Penn State's got to be a team that wins in the margins, and that's one of these margins that has sort of opened up a little bit more. It's kind of I think it's those leagues are incredibly entertaining. By the way, like if you see the fanfare at those Euro leagues, they're awesome. They're like soccer matches with flares, all that kind of crazy stuff. But yeah, it's a different kind of game, and Penn State, to be successful, to essentially lure basketball players, city kids, essentially to state college is a tough road to hoe, but they can get there and be more successful with the Euros. And I think that's possible. It's not probable, but it's possible that they can do that.
I want to get into today's first topic, which broke just minutes before the show started, and that is still talking about the transfer portal, but this time on the football side of things. Penn State defensive lineman is what I'm going to call him for the moment. Joseph Mupoyi entered the transfer portal. He is now, I think, off the top of my head, the 6th player from Penn State to enter the portal this spring. So depth on the defensive line takes a hit. I want to turn it over to our experts here on the panel to have a conversation about Mupoyi. I said in the pre-show text, I found it interesting that he was announced as an edge. Those things, maybe as far as how the nomenclature goes out there, doesn't necessarily connote where he was on the roster or anything other than somebody read a profile and it said one thing. But I guess, how do you view his time at Penn State, Fitz, and what led to him deciding to move on from the Nittany Lions?
Yeah, a lottery ticket right there. That's a kid who is a big, beautiful kid. Like, he looks like he's first off the bus type material. It's just he didn't play a lot of football. His background was okay. He went from D.C., I believe St. John's College in D.C., up to play New England prep school ball. And he was productive and did some nice things. It's just taking that next step. There's so many different things when you don't have a background in a particular sport. Like, there's so many nuances that you cannot, or it's very tough for you to learn at age 20, I think he is. So, like, I don't think he picked up on a lot of that stuff. So, when talking about him, who started out as an edge, and he's so massive and he's strong and he's got a lot of the boxes, it's kind of like Joseph Apia-Darkwa a couple of years ago, the German player. Very athletic, very, strong and coachable and all these kind of things. It just doesn't come together sometimes for these guys, and feel is a big part of it. So he was, he's running 3rd, 4th team defensive tackle. So that's not going to change things. You mentioned he was announced as an edge. He was originally an edge prospect. So I think people just looking at those profiles and just parlaying that into the tweets and things like that. But he's an interior defensive lineman. He put on a lot of weight. He works hard. I mean, I've got great things to say about this kid. He works hard. He's very thoughtful. I talked to him after his freshman year, and he was awesome, just absolutely awesome to talk to. It's just sometimes it doesn't come together. And when you're going up against guys who have been playing football all their life, or, at least have a general sense of football background, then it kind of makes sense that how this didn't come together. And when you're looking at the roster cut down, it's part of that.
I do think that kind of transition can help him because being 200 and 80 pounds maybe is what he is now. Here, my point being, he did not transition into what you think of when a defensive tackle. The dude is lean, and if he had to play defensive end for a school that maybe doesn't have the same standard or threshold of talent as a Penn State, and maybe at a lower level, I do think that might be on the table for him as well. So defensive line overall, I'm interested to see like where he lands and all of those things from the fit and schematic perspective, which for a guy who's very raw at this point may be an immaterial thing, but. Nate, overall depth on the defensive line. I know we've talked about a lot of guys at defensive tackle. I know we've talked about the youth at this position. How do you view what Penn State's going through right now in this week with first off, Mupoyi, your thoughts there. And then if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to do the thing where I asked, you asked James Franklin 2 questions rolled into one because you only get one here. What is this going to be something you could see more of happening this week as the deadline's coming? And certain guys are going to see themselves on the roster and they know kind of what the deal is. I'm not asking, is there going to be a mass exodus, but like how should fans keep an eyeball out for this sort of thing filtering and trickling out the rest of the week?
You actually nailed the double play there, because not only is it 2 questions rolled into one, but the second question is actually a statement. So it's really perfect.
Just need to add talk about to the beginning of it.
Like,
yeah. Hey, listen, I went to journalism school. I learned the one thing is don't say talk about. I did get that one right.
Do you think people are going to get the hint and transfer out of Penn State? Yeah, I do actually. Look, this is the bottom line here is the numbers aren't right. I'm not saying it's a 1-to-1, right, that you can automatically discount and say that however many players there are over the 125 or whatever it is, is exactly what's going to take place over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I'll be surprised if guys don't realize, and think to themselves, hey, we want a different opportunity. We want a better opportunity, more playing time. I mean, that's what all these guys want is, yes, they want more money for sure. And that's something that is in constant pursuit, but also opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're buried on the depth chart, if you don't think that you can cut it and work your way in there, they're gonna. Some of those guys are gonna come to the conclusion that their opportunity is best served elsewhere. So
and that's not new. That happened last year. You look at last year's spring portal window, and they lost 9 guys or whatever it was, and Keandre was the one that moved the needle. But like everybody else, maybe King Mac, but everybody else was guys that you looked at and you said, okay, that makes sense. So I think that's where you go with that, and you're just seeing it because the portal window closes on Friday. Like it's an abbreviated window this year instead of, I think May was the end last year. So you might see a lot crammed into it. Penn State at 115 right now on the roster. And we had some questions about that. And it was about scholarship guys. Well, scholarship guys, the scholarship count really doesn't matter anymore. It's just that 105. If this is approved without any sort of tack on where you say, okay, 115 this year, 110 the following year, 105 the next year, which would be the smart way to do it, but I'm not in Congress or whatever. So, but it's one of those things where the scholarship count doesn't matter. Everybody else has to get down to 105. Penn State still has a handful of guys that are going to arrive this summer as scholarship guys. And if they want to take, transfers, that's going to eat into that number as well. So you've just got to get to that 105 eventually by camp, and you have to essentially pave the runway for that. I mean, it is one of those situations. So I would not be shocked. Mupoyi, you look at his impact on the potential in 2025, it wasn't going to happen. So it makes a lot of sense. Now the other side of this is guys like him who are younger in their career, and they're going to get a shot somewhere because they're coming from Penn State. But if you're leaving certain programs, you have to go to another program that also has to get to 105. So these spots are just shrinking by the day. That's another reason to go in. That's another reason you see JB Nelson going in, Smith Vilbert, those guys trying to, well, I guess maybe not those two, but these guys getting ahead of everything else.
If I may add another editorial question here, why does this suck? Because that also sounds like that's not great for anybody when we talk about shrinking the roster size, the transfer portal, all those things. If it's just laid out, that's a bummer. I want to get into the chat here quickly. We've got a couple things going on. M. Pillion says, Fitz said his puppy was being an a-hole, and then his dog almost instantly said, hold my beer, and threw up whole stomach onto the ground. So
if you listen to my last rant and you heard that long, like 1.5-second pause, it's because I read that out of the corner of my eye and I was just mortified for that person. So, or that dog really, but yeah, good luck with that.
Couple other questions. Christian wants to know, Nate, did you get a fresh cut for the week?
Looking
did. Good.
Yeah.
Looking good.
Yeah.
2 kids, 1 wife, all PSU says, what? You guys aren't all in one office? As I mentioned, we're all here working from home. Dogs being the theme of the way we've started this. I don't tempt me, because I absolutely would love to have a studio where we all get together, do this in person. So there's not the Zoom. No, you go. No, you go. And then it's 2 people holding the door open for nobody walking through it. But dreams can happen one day or another. Lastly, we got Corey Smith here. Says, first live show since January. Thank God tax season is over. Excited to hear about Anti-Fragile and John's. Well, we need to deliver for Corey. So, Fitz, tell me about John's.
I was just texting with John, actually, and we're excited for the weekend because it's a big blue-white weekend. If you're coming into town, definitely hit Anti-Fragile. I'm going to hit it at least once, probably twice. So I'm looking forward to getting down there. Someone mentioned the John's breakfast sandwiches. They should have those on Saturday morning before the game. So if you're downtown, definitely check it out. Those things look incredible. I've yet to have one just because just sitting on that for the rest of the day is probably pretty tough at my age. But there's plenty of people that can definitely handle that. And especially if you're going to go out tailgate and drink some beer. Best beer in State College, our favorite spot to hang out. Definitely get down there. If you like beer, kombucha, mixed drinks, cheesesteaks, atmosphere, nice people smiling and talking about Penn State, this is a pretty good spot for you. So definitely check it out. Hopefully the weather cooperates with us this weekend so we can sit outside. You can go upstairs. It's a great place to pen in Nate's kids, if you're getting together for a little social gathering. So we love the folks in Anti-Fragile. We love the beer at Anti-Fragile. We love the atmosphere. And we do suggest you check it out. Tell them the Blue White Podcast sent you. We're really appreciative of their support. And we hope that they're appreciative of our support as well, because we like their stuff.
Absolutely. Appreciate Anti-Fragile for being a part of the Tuesday show. Let's do a quick reset because we're not done talking about the transfer portal. That was just what happened this morning. Transfer portal is still churning. And what happened last week is arguably more important, with one of the top receivers in the transfer portal visiting Penn State as one of his first stops. Syracuse wide receiver Trebor Pena came to Penn State over the weekend. So Nate, I'm going to come to you in terms of the impact of getting a guy and the priorities and all those things here in the portal. Just, I guess, Penn State and AD Pat Kraft mentioned they were going to be aggressive. Do you find the level of interest immediately as a sign of that aggression, or is that still to be determined if they actually sign him? I'm just trying to gauge the program and the fit and trying to get him on campus as soon as possible in this particular window.
Yeah, I think that it speaks to an outstanding need, right? Whether Pat Kraft thinks so or not, it's whether James Franklin thinks so, right? And whether Marcus Hagans thinks so are the guys that you got in the room enough? Bottom line is, are they enough? Do they fulfill the needs that you're going to have? And that doesn't have to necessarily mean marquee, high-end superstar, right? Do you have a superstar in the room? Maybe, maybe not. But also, do you have enough depth? What happens if somebody gets hurt? Do you have players who can step in and help you out? Right? Who are the players in the portal who can help you? Can they help you? And if the answer is yes, checks off a couple of boxes, then pursue it. And so I do think that it signals 2 things. One, that bringing him in signifies an outstanding need. They
still feel at this point, after watching for 3.5 weeks, they still feel receiver is a need.
Receiver, and this is me playing semantics, but maybe not a need as much as a can be helped.
Okay.
Right? Can improve with outside interjection. And so, I think that's part of it. And then the second part of it that I do think is relevant, and Fitz did some reporting on this over the weekend, there was this big number, $2 million, right?
Yeah.
Fitz, I'll let you divulge the accuracy or veracity of that, but
it's not close. No, stop. It's just not. I mean, $2 million. That is sensationalism at its peak from Fran Brown there. Like, he could have got the point across with $1 million. Like, that's not really how that would come together. But the kid, it's very much a small part of the story. It's still part of the story, but it's taken a mind of its own. It's very interesting. People have latched on to Fran Brown as the bastion of all that is right, because he wouldn't pay this guy $2 million when that's just,
yep.
It's not the story here. Like, the story is that this kid wanted to find a situation, and I'm sorry for cutting you off and going into a rant,
but killing me.
Wanted to find a situation that helps prop him up for the pros. He caught a lot of footballs last year at Syracuse, but that's an offense where a lot of people caught a lot of footballs, and
yep.
It's a system. I think they had 4 guys over 60 catches last year. So without getting into how he fits at Penn State, or how he would fit at Penn State, or how he, what level prospect he was absolutely very productive, and he's trying to boost and maximize his college experience and also set himself up for the pros. So
yeah,
they don't have a quarterback right now. I think I saw that Steve Angeli was going to visit there this weekend or this week, which is an interesting twist. But I think it's a situation where he's looking out kind of for himself, and Fran didn't take it too well. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. And I'm very curious to see what's going on. I'm not saying he's going to be cheap. I'm not saying he's going to be, I'm just saying the $2 million is a thing to get you fired up, and it looks like it worked.
Yeah. Everyone likes to latch on to something like that is easily latch onable. Nate, what do you got?
Just the second point being, they're in the, whatever the number is, they're in the market, right? Like, Penn State is in the market.
Right.
It's saying that there is.
Well, that's what I was trying to ask you to set all this up. Yeah, that's the number 1 or 2 receiver is in the portal. It feels like institutional alignment where they can even have the conversation, whatever the number might be.
Whatever that number is, it is at a place where Penn State's not bringing him to campus if they don't feel it is right. Like, you don't go to the Lamborghini lot on a Honda budget. Right. And so, and I'm not saying that this kid is a Lamborghini cost. I'm simply saying whatever that number is for him, Penn State is going into this with its eyes open, understanding there's going to be a price tag attached, and that whatever that price tag is, Penn State is at least listening, right? Or is at least having that conversation. So, I'm interested. The BYU kid was reported yesterday as somebody who Penn State has contacted. So you're starting to see a little bit of, I think, a broader net of like interest and feeling things out. So it's going to be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks, again, how this plays out, or maybe not over the next couple of weeks, right? If they identify somebody and have that conversation, and there's a good fit and they get the deal done or whatever it is, then it's done. And Penn State can feel resolved and move forward with what it expects to be a productive room, right? A productive roster at that position.
Ryan asked this in the chat. He says it's possible that Pena is another Fleming, not all that productive and talented, but everyone thinking he may be. Listen, there's a very different set of circumstances and conversations around Julian Fleming, his ties to the university previously, his recruiting profile. This is a guy who was a 2020 recruit that was, I believe, a 3-star at the time in 2020, that went to Syracuse, versus a guy who was a 5-star and had all of those expectations attached to him. Beyond that, what he actually is as a football player. I broke that down over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com this weekend. If you guys want to go check that out, you can do that if you do a couple of different things. First thing is you got to subscribe. Premium content, it costs you just $1 this week if you subscribe for 1 week, which is what happens when you're enrolled. We give you the first week for a buck. If you like it, you can keep enrolled for the rest of the year at full price. So a great time to get our insights about the blue-white game, about the transfer portal, all these things right now for just $1. This is also the last week of our contest and our giveaway. What we're doing is, if you subscribe right now for free to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel, we are going to pick 5 winners this weekend and announce them on the next Tuesday show. And those 5 people who have subscribed between basically a month before the blue-white game and the blue-white game, 5 of those people are going to win a year subscription to the site. I don't know if I butchered the explanation of that, but basically, if you haven't yet subscribed right now, and you'll be entered to win a chance to get a year subscription to the site, and you don't have much time left. So if I know that there's literally thousands of people to watch this that aren't subscribed yet. Just even if you're listening on the podcast, all you have to do is subscribe to the YouTube channel, go back to the podcast, and you're fine. You get access to the premium content over at the BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. So all that great stuff, and give you some context about what he is and he isn't. I'd say the one thing is, if you're thinking that because he's the number 1 receiver in the portal, like you thought Julian Fleming was the superstar that was going to come and save the room, neither of those things are accurate. So in that sense, Ryan, yeah, if you have this sense of what he is and what he isn't, there is a way he fits into the offense, and I think he is a better receiver prospect than Fleming was at the time, but that doesn't mean he's the savior of all these things. Fitz, do you have any opinions on any? Oh, Nate, what do you got?
Well, I was just going to say, and Fitz, I think we're kind of on the same. I think that both of us probably have a little bit more reporting to do on this. But there's a chance that Liam Clifford is a starting receiver for Penn State again in the fall. Is there somebody out there who can be more productive than Liam? Right? Is there a piece that can be brought into the program that gives you an upgrade in productivity over the potential of what Liam is? And I think there's an answer out there probably, maybe, and it's worth investigating. It's worth that pursuit to find out. It's not to say that Liam's a bad player, that he's reached his peak. It is simply, hey, this is a guy who, right, had 18 catches last year, right? Is there a world out there where Penn State can bring somebody in who doesn't have to be 60 catches, but can give you 35, 40, and average 15 yards a catch? Maybe.
I got some stats, if that's okay.
Go do it.
In 2023, Jamori Macklin caught 57 passes for 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns at North Texas. He went to Kentucky last year, caught 13 passes for 313 yards and 4 touchdowns. Big drop-off. In 2023, Josh Kelly caught 61 passes, 923 yards, and 8 touchdowns at Washington State. Pretty good offense to be a receiver in. He went to Texas Tech, caught 89 passes for 1,023 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's all to say that we don't know how all this stuff is going to transfer. It's very difficult to look at a guy who is not a down-and-out number 1, which I don't think Pena is, and say that this is going to successfully transfer, especially in an offense that has not highlighted wide receivers like Penn State's. So I'm looking at that saying, yes, it could happen, and it could go really well. Mitchell Tinsley, I think, went pretty well. Julian Fleming did not. I mean, there's no way to pin this down and say that it's going to happen. Now, what I'll say about Fleming and Pena, which was the comparison made in the chat, is they kind of knew what Fleming was and looked at him more as a stabilizer than a guy that could go out and make them plays. They want Pena to go out and make them plays. And they've had people around him that have sort of stamped him, sort of, said, okay, this kid's the real deal. Will it work? Don't know. Still don't know that Kyron Hudson and Devontae Ross will work. I think they can.
Right.
But at the same time, we don't know because they haven't played the games yet. So be very interesting to see how this comes out. It's just it's very difficult to look at what happens from a schematic point of view and say that this kid is good enough to transform go from a spread offense to Penn State's offense. So that's all to say we have no idea what the hell is going to happen here.
I would even suggest that the box score might not indicate success with Trevor Pena, where what you might want from him is third downs, clutch catches, big time moments, somebody to get open and get the quarterback a clean target in critical situations. Because as you guys mentioned, this is an offense that's going to be built around the running game and the running backs. And then from there, you build out from what the tight ends bring to you and the receivers. You would like the receivers to force the issue, You would love the receivers to say, like, okay, we're done with this conversation. The receivers are going to lead the passing game. That
just
is not
just say you want smash fades is what you want.
Yeah. Here's what I want. Here's what I want to see. I want to see Drew Aller throw to receivers that are like, I want to see the whole thing. I want to see the franchise quarterback develop and have the options to throw the ball to every part of the field. I want to see that because I have not seen a guy with first-round talent play at Penn State at this position in my career. These are the things I root for. I root for good football. I root for watching cool stuff I've never seen before. I would love for Trevor Pena to be able to run deep routes, stack receivers, stack DBs, get open, and make big plays because that's exciting. Whether or not you root for a team, football is a super exciting sport, and there's nothing more exciting than the deep ball. So yeah, I do want that. I want Devontae Ross or Trevor Pena or Tyser Denmark or any of those guys to show something that we haven't seen before, which is that electricity in the game that we all are excited about, that everyone it wants in football generally.
T-Frank is, I didn't look for the stat previously, but it dawned on me while we're talking here. 67 of Tyler Warren's 104 receptions last season were for first downs.
Yeah.
That's high. Is that high? Do we know?
Off the top of my head. So I off the top of my head, I don't know if that's high. Here's the thing is like, it's also targets. So you have the target, then you have the reception, then you have what happens afterwards. So I would go actually by targets, which is 140 or something like that. So it's not quite 60% like it sounds like. But yeah, once he got the ball in his hands, once all those things were solved, then you have that. And yes, they do need to replace that.
Point being for a tight end, which is not going to have the same yards per catch as a traditional receiver, correct? He was a guy that they turned to on third down. Like he was the guy that when they needed to move the sticks, he was the guy that they went to all the time. And you don't have that now. What does the offense look like in that situation? How many third and shorts are they getting into in the first place? Right? How much are they relying on the running backs? But also, I don't know where that. And obviously, again, this is all anecdotal. But like, where is that coming from in this offense? Who is actually keeping possessions alive for this Penn State offense?
Well, I think if you were to ask fans, they're going to say, well, the tight ends, right? So it's just going to be Luke Reynolds and Khalil Dinkins in just do the tight end thing again. But to the point that I've tried to make all offseason, and I'm going to steer us away from the receiver gutter conversation because we're just going to bowl another spare here if we don't move on to Fitz's recruiting update. There is a factor here that is beyond just first downs, and it's just moving the sticks. This offense needs the kill shot. It needs the running backs, and Stan Drayton talked about this last week about can you make the safety miss, the free hit or miss, and get not just a big run, and I know that they were explosive last year, but the kill shot in the second quarter where Nick Singleton goes for 76 yards and a touchdown. Can you find a receiver to take an RPO slant and not get 15 yards, break a free safety, get a touchdown? Stop making the 17-play drives a reality. Have a 7-play drive for 74 yards for 2 minutes and 30 seconds and get a touchdown. That is what's in the balance of what they need from the receivers because the running backs are going to run the football a lot. And I don't know that any of these guys actually do that. I don't know if Trevor Pena does that, but he is a hell of a lot closer to doing that than a tight end who is fast runs a 4.6. So whoever it is in the offense doing that, getting those third downs, making those plays, there needs to be a reconstitution of the offense to generate more of those plays that the other team can't come back from. There is no matching that, especially when you have a defense that you expect to be good.
I'm just very curious what the odds were that we got this far, and the first person to bring up Nick Singleton was not Nate. It's just unbelievable to me. I don't know how that happened. Second thing, it's Bob Nutting's fault. He took Lonnie White from Penn State. So
yeah, I would agree with that. And so for that, Nate, I'm putting you in timeout. We're going to come back in a couple of minutes because we got to talk about a lot of things that are important to the future of Penn State, which is recruiting. Also very big this week with Fitz's recruiting update. This is a very juicy Fitz's recruiting update. There's a lot of good stuff from this weekend. You know, I think some of the conversations we could have today about players, positions, Fitz, all that stuff is on the table. The first thing, of course, is if you're watching this video, please like, subscribe, all that great stuff to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. But if you missed it because you aren't subscribed, Daryl Carey, safety for DeMatha, committed on Friday. We had a breaking news video about that. But of course, I always like to follow up with the other expert who isn't on the video the following week to get their opinion on things. So we had our conversation on Friday. Fitz, fill us in on what you think of Daryl Carey, the safety from DeMatha.
It's going to be news to a lot of people, but I like DeMatha safeties. Daryl Carey, obviously, KJ Winston came from there. It was a very good player for Penn State. Unfortunately, didn't see the end of his career like we wanted it to, but he's going to get drafted this weekend. So, but back to Daryl Carey, legit size. This is a guy they thought might jump on board back in February. So he's been very high on Penn State for a while, and that door has been open for a while as well. It's not a situation where they just told him, okay, we can take you now. This is a domino effect from someone else. That's not how that worked. He's been on the board. He was on the February big board, actually. It was just kind of a surprise because he was fairly new on the scene at this point. He's got good size. He is what do we say, T. Frank? A hitter, not a tackler. Yeah. That's something that he's going to have to pick up. Good ball skills, decent speed. He is an athletic kid. He's high jump 6'4" this year. He's he's long jumped 22.10, which is pretty good for a junior. And I would like to see some sprinting numbers, but maybe we'll get that at some point. So covers a lot of ground out there. Still, kind of some stuff to work on. I compared him to Antonio Branch, who Penn State had committed for a while last cycle. Eventually, he flipped to Colorado. So big, rangy safety. He can run. He can hit. Some work to do on the tackling side of things and the playing in. I would say playing within the scheme type of things there. DeMatha has a very good defense every year, and he's one of those stars. So very high on Daryl Carey. I think we got him as an 86. I'd probably put him about as an 88 if we had him to rank there. I think there's a lot of upside there. And I think
does he end as a 4-star for you? I mean, in the process, if he gets to some camps and he puts out some good film with the size and the potential we talked about from the physical side, he's a 4-star athlete. I guess in my mind, that's where I place him. Do you think that's ultimately this is a guy who outperforms his current ranking when he was committed to the program?
I think the potential is there, just based on the size and the amount of ground that he can cover at that size. Got some length to him, so he's got some really good boxes checked. Still think there's more to come together, and I think he's got the potential to do so. So yeah, I could see that happen. I was high on Branch last year as well, and I think he's a pretty similar player. Just a guy that's maybe just a little bit rough around the edges, but that's good. You'll take that at 16, 17 years old, and being able to turn that into an eventual safety prospect. He is, the size does check out. So he's one of those bigger safeties that Dex likes. And I think there's a lot to like there. So you've got him, you've got Matt Sieg, who, I think is probably underrated as well. We still have him as an 87. I think he's a 4-star prospect to be honest with you, with those athletic numbers, with those size numbers. And then David Davis can play there as well. Still going after Joey O'Brien, still going after a handful of guys. Safety is interesting because it's, one of those spots that you look at on the roster right now and say that could be deeper and could be a little bit more flush with talent. But there's a bunch of young guys that are still learning how to play. And I probably would include Dejon Lane, who's probably a starter in that mix. But Vabu Toure and some of those young guys that have that potential. And I think Carey would fit into that. I think he's probably a redshirt guy, but I think he could fit into that and eventually grow into a pretty good safety here.
So you mentioned Joey O'Brien. You mentioned the safety position. I think that's the obvious question a lot of fans have. We talked about this on Friday. There's a spot for Joey O'Brien no matter what. He's one of those +1 guys that, we'll figure it out. Right. Steve Wiltfong talked to him about the Penn State visit. So I just want to make that clear. So I'm not putting you in a corner of like you're saying something somebody else found out. But in the title, it said playing both ways. And I found that illuminating that's one of the things that came out of this particular weekend. What are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts on Joey O'Brien's ability to be a potential two-way player or fit into the class, knowing what they have at receiver and at safety so far in the class?
Take him, figure it out later. Like, that is how good he is. He is a top 100 prospect in my eyes. Maybe the best skill player in Pennsylvania. I think he's got so much potential and really has it on both sides of the ball. The thing that I look to with Joey O'Brien is every college coach that you look at says, man, this kid could be an all everything safety. But he's done it more on the offensive side of the ball in high school so far. So I just like that potential on both sides. The size checks out. We've talked to before. about the Notre Dame aspect and the Kyle Hamiltons and the guys that are 6'4" that have gone there and been successful. And I think that, Penn State has had some really successful big safeties as well, and maybe not to the extent of 6'4", but they can make it work. Dex could make it work. So I think Penn State did an awesome job this weekend. This is one where you look at the pattern of visit highs and, just where he goes, and Penn State's in a good spot after this visit, which isn't a surprise. I mean, this is kind of how we opened it with with talking about it after the Notre Dame RPM, crystal ball, whatever, is that when he goes on visits, he's very impressed, and he should be impressed. All these visits are very impressive. And I think Penn State kind of had their shot late in the spring. They're going to get another shot for an official visit. I think they're in a good spot right now, but it's a matter of finishing it off, because there's some really, really big powerhouses in here with Oregon. He just went out to Oregon, really enjoyed it. Notre Dame, of course. So I think there's a bunch of schools that still have a legitimate chance. Penn State maybe at the forefront of that list, although what does your leader mean on April 22nd is how I would sort of frame this recruitment.
Gotcha. And yeah, you're going to be impressed because you're seeing some of the best programs in the country. It's not like you're going to a school and being like, you know what, I didn't really like that because, this team last year they had 2 wins. Like, those aren't the schools where he has the options to go to some of the best schools. So I know, just to set this up for you, Penn State did not have a practice this weekend, their normal schedule. That also will feed into the blue-white conversation this week with more practices in this particular week, which means that Monday was a recruiting day instead of Saturday, I believe. So what came out of Monday to start the week, and who are some of the players that you have your eye on that are visiting this week for Penn State football?
Yeah, they changed up the schedule. They went, instead of going Thursday last week, they went to Friday, and then took the Easter weekend sort of off, and then came back Monday. We usually have had our practice availability on Tuesday evening. That's been pushed to Wednesday this week, and they'll go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Friday will be a walkthrough. Saturday, blue-white game. So that's kind of the end of spring schedule. They always change it up. But over the weekend on Friday, Friday, O'Brien was there. Peter Bork, the 2027 quarterback, very important target for Penn State. He was there as well. Leo Delaney, an offensive lineman from North Carolina, is going to set up an official visit or has set up an official visit. I'm not sure if that's been out there yet, but he's another guy that, shockingly, Trout set up another official visit for an offensive lineman. So that's how that came together. And then Monday, you get right back at it. Kari Adams, top 5 guy on the board, top 3 guy on the board, maybe, for Penn State, cornerback from Maryland, who has been up several times. This is sort of like O'Brien. He went out and visited a bunch of schools and then came back to Penn State late in April. I think Penn State's one of the leaders there. But a very important target, probably the top cornerback target for Terry Smith right now. And he's a good player. He can fly, man. He's the kid, if you've been watching, that we compared to Brendan Finney last year, and his recruitment has taken that same trajectory where he just absolutely blew up in the winter. Winter track helps, guys, if you're a prospect and you're fast, and it can really boost your offer list right there. Roseby Lubintis, the offensive lineman from South Jersey, he was in town yesterday. There's not a huge visit list yesterday. Ryan Snyder put that together for BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, but impressive concentration numbers, if you will. So I think it makes a lot of sense for some of these guys that checked out other schools and then came back late in the spring. So Penn State, suffice to say, they have some momentum right now, because, again, just like I said with Joey O'Brien, what's momentum mean on April 22nd? We will see, but it sets up pretty nicely for the weekend. I'm sure we'll talk about that on the weekend the Thursday show. And one more, Luke Sorensen from California was in, tight end from California. He's got an official visit set up as well. So I think that they've been very busy with that recruiting side of things, and starting to see some returns. Got the Carey commitment, so they've gotten a couple of commits lately. So keep pushing, find the guys that are potentially going to decide before that official visit window, sort of push harder on those guys, and then, get to the spring evaluation period where you can go out on the road and recruit, and then get to June for those official visits.
Of course, there's so much more recruiting content. Ryan Snyder has been doing a great job of getting interviews and stuff like that. Intel from Sean Fitz, all of that. Just as a reminder, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. You can subscribe right now, and you'll get a week of access to the site. And then from there, you can decide if you want to join us for a year or not. Of course, this being Blue White Week, there's all kinds of intel, conversation, content, practice updates, all that stuff at bluewhiteillustrated.com. So thanks for watching the video. As always, subscribe here to this particular show, this particular video. That helps us out immensely. And that will help us grow the channel so we can do more things around recruiting. Okay, let's talk about the Blue-White game. Here we are back together. The game coming up this weekend is going to be different than previous Blue-White games. The main thing, and I'll start with this, which is not necessarily the sexiest topic, but will be fundamentally changing the way everything is that they are not going to be broadcasting this game. So it will feel more like a practice, maybe, Nate Bauer? Would you say maybe in that sense of, there's no TV timeouts, there's no halftime, there's just going to be football, and then with a side of football. You're on mute. What do you think the feel of the game is going to be like?
Yeah, great question. I don't know, and I'm not sure that they know. is kind of where I'm at, because there was an explanation by James Franklin maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, right, kind of near the start of spring practice, talking about eliminating halftime, right? There would be no halftime. And then Happy Valley United they have a promotion going for halftime of the game in which you can catch a punt. So, kind of a look there, it's on the radio. So the radio is going to have intermissions.
So like maybe a 10-minute halftime instead of like a full thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I'm not sure it matters, right? End of the day, who cares? People are going to go into the stadium. Everybody wants to see what a stadium deconstructed looks like. Some of those platforms.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, some of those platforms. Well, we're going to get to see our new digs, right, in the East formerly President's Suite. Is where the media will be sitting. So that's not really relevant to anybody else, but it is to us.
Until an hour before the game, where everybody tweets out the picture of where they're sitting.
Yeah, live from Beaver Stadium. No, but look, it's an excuse to get back together, right? For Penn State fans, there will be some variety of, like, I'm not anticipating, right, like, we're at practice and it's Indy.
Right. No ball security drills.
Ball security. Yeah, I don't anticipate that. So I do think that there will be some form of, a drive, a possession, right? Some defensive possessions. I anticipate tons of third and fourth string participation. I wouldn't anticipate anybody right at the top of the depth chart getting more than maybe a couple of reps. So, but speed things along, sure, because you don't have to fill a 2-hour time slot. This does not have to go 2 hours. And I would bet strongly that James Franklin doesn't want it to go 2 hours. And so they'll keep things moving.
Fitz, what are you interested in learning? Let's shift to the on-field stuff, because I think there's a lot of people that are interested in that. What do you want to learn, given that we've seen quite a bit this spring compared to other springs, but we haven't yet seen a scrimmage, which is what the Blue-White game is. What are you hoping to learn about this team?
Yeah, you look at what's out there, and it's not, it's very vanilla in terms of game planning on both sides, which it should be. But you look at the competition aspect of it all, and I think all eyes are going to be on those receivers, because this is, a make or break. You hate to use the easy cliches there, but how close was Penn State playing for a national championship? Yeah. It's a make or break thing. So the competition level there is very important. It's a good group of corners. We've seen AC, Aldavian, Collins.
He's been great this spring.
Collins, or whatever you want to call him right now. We've seen him sort of, I don't want to say rough up some receivers, but get after it. And I think that's what I want to see on Saturday. Is you want to see how these guys respond to the live portion of it, because when you talk route running, sorry, I don't know why I called it a route. But when you talk route running, you're talking about getting from point to point, and those guys, their job is to knock you off it and make you get away from that. And so much of the passing game is timing and rapport and all that kind of stuff. And how do these guys respond when it's live? Because, hey, we know we've seen Liam Clifford get open in practice. How is that translated to the game? Not particularly great, because the other guys on the other team are trying to keep him from getting to a spot, and these guys need to get through that and make that happen. So, I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking at, is how do these guys respond when it's not run to 12, come back to 10, just the little things there. So in a situation that means so much to Penn State, and not Saturday, I'm not talking Saturday, but the situation of they need receivers to compete to be in a national championship game. It's a big deal. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Offensive line combinations, obviously. I think they're without a bunch of guys right now, even beyond the guys that we didn't expect to play. So how do you shuffle with that, and how does it affect Quentin Martin, Corey Smith, Tyke Hayes, those guys that should be getting most of the carries, as I think Singleton and Katron sit Mai Tais on the sideline or something like that. So I think all that stuff kind of matters, and there's still position battles going on. And even though the portal is closed on Friday, you don't have to be at 105 until the camp. So there's still a lot to fight for some of those guys that might be on the fringe of things.
Yeah. So one of the things that we haven't really discussed a whole lot this year, and Fitz, you've covered this over on the site, but it has not been a large talking point for us here on the show, and hasn't occupied a lot of my brain space, is the quarterback competition. So Nate, are you interested in learning about QB2, QB3, those two young guys, and which one is going to make the big play that everyone latches onto? And then that's the thing that's going to determine whether they think that player is good or not when it comes to September.
Yeah. It's not irrelevant. It really isn't. What is the likelihood, given the player that Drew Aller has become, particularly running the football, that he makes it through a 16-game season without missing some time? I think it's less than 50%. And I think he's a durable, right? Like, that's not a knock on Drew. It's just
he's been I would say, as a college quarterback, he's been durable. He's played. Has he missed a game? He's only missed quarters.
He came out of that Wisconsin game.
Right, but he didn't not start a game. He was there for the next game. Yeah.
Simply saying, at some point in the season, there's a fair likelihood that you're going to need your backup, that he's going to have to play in some capacity. So sorting that out and figuring out who that guy is going to be. It's not going to be figured out on Saturday, but it'll be a data point. Right. It'll give you an idea of what those guys look like, because the reality with Jackson Smolik is he missed all of last year. He hasn't had that opportunity yet. And Ethan has thrown 2 passes, right, in a college football playoff game, right? That was his debut. So having in front of fans an opportunity to play a little bit and see what those guys look like is going to be interesting.
Yeah. The Fitz, you mentioned the offensive line. I'm fascinated by the tackle situation, just because it's like, I've been so excited about some of these guys that have been recruited that have this immense talent. And I would like to see a little bit of that on display. Just watching them play, see where they are in this progression of, kind of couching what the timeline is for some of these guys. The light has come on for Javen Williams, is a quote we've had this spring. What does that look like in full contact, for the offensive line? I want to see how he does in pass protection. Like, I love watching those guys in the blue-white game to kind of get an idea of the trenches, where you don't get to see a lot of this stuff that is full, pads popping, people are going to the ground. Even when we get to see more of it in practice, we don't get to see all of that. I think that's a offensive line, defensive line, especially at that defensive tackle position, which is why I wanted to come to you with that. You've been following this one for a while. Is there a name or a player within the competition at defensive tackle you're most curious about, whether it's a recruit, transfer player, or a guy that we've heard the name a couple times here?
Yeah, I think that you look at what's there after Zane Durant and eventually Alonzo Ford as well, and there's plenty of question marks. I think you probably throw Xavier Gilliam in there to that top group, but I mean, there's a bunch of guys that are going to get a bunch of snaps that need to sort of refine themselves maybe quicker than generally at some other positions they would have to do. So Ty Blanding, I think, is a very important piece of this, because you're looking at a situation where you feel good about 3 guys. Well, you need more than 3 guys. You need probably 5 guys. And Blanding right now in that 4 spot, is he good enough to carry you as a 4-5, which doesn't have to be an every down guy, but does have to play and does have to play a decent amount. You look at what Penn State had last year, and I don't think people understand how fortunate they were to have that veteran presence, to have those guys that, played a lot of football, to stick around, to be good football players. Like Devon J. Thomas is probably a classically underrated football player for Penn State. Nobody noticed him. Yep. But that's sometimes good for a defensive tackle. But you're looking at, Ty Blanding, Luke Wafel, Owen Wafel, my mistake. Owen Wafel. That was everybody not, I didn't do that on purpose. That was my fault. Liam Andrews, DeAndre Cook, those guys who are sort of all over the map in terms of they have some of those traits that you're looking for, but to play defensive tackle, a lot of that comes from feel and experience, and they don't have that. So it's kind of where I'm going with that at defensive tackle. On the other side of the ball, you got Drew Shelton, you got Venga, you got Nick Dawkins, who have all played a ton of football. So how do you get around them, get them a couple series and then fill them in? Guys like Garrett Sexton, you mentioned Javen Williams, Alex Birkmeyer, TJ Shanahan, the transfer from Texas A&M. So there's a lot of learning to be done from those guys to solidify that roster. And hey, they're really deep at a bunch of positions. They're not really deep at every position though. So how do they make that work? How do they kind of feel it out and sort of to get through Saturday with quality reps that will pay off in the long run for some of those guys that you're looking to not so much star, but fortify, for the upcoming season. So kind of fascinated to see how that plays out. I'm also looking forward to a game that's not played in 50-mile-an-hour winds like it was last year. We can take we can actually pay attention to how the quarterbacks throw instead of looking at it and saying Bo can't throw because it's a monsoon or a hurricane or whatever it was last year. So very much looking forward to football, as to say, for a lack of better terms, looking forward to football.
So I actually have something for you here because somebody in the chat also said, hope it's not going to rain. Well, here is the forecast for this coming weekend. I always like to do this for the blue-white game for everybody. Okay, so Friday, if you're going to be here early in town, chances of showers after 2 p.m., partly sunny, 73 degrees, precipitation chance 50. It's going to rain this weekend. Saturday, most showers are before 2 p.m., and it will be 67 degrees. 60% chance of rain. So bring a couple different layers. I think it was 2 kids, 1 wife, all PSU said it's supposed to be done raining around 10:30. I don't have that level of detail. I went to the National Weather Service, so I don't have the granular level that will change 4 times before we get there. But it does sound like for the game, there's a chance it's going to be dry, which is fun. So I think that's going to be great for everybody. Come on out, say hi, go to Uncle John's, Anti-Fragile, all that stuff. Make it a full weekend. We love having people in town for games like this. The thing that I want to see more than anything is the thing we're not going to see, but you can't hide everything, and that is the defensive game plan. What are we doing? Who's where? How are they doing stuff? What's the hybrid in the defense? Have they said, are they going to do different hybrids for different situations? I just want as much information as I can absorb about Jim Knowles and the basic outline of what's going to happen for the upcoming season, understanding that everything important is going to be saved for later. But, what does the nickel position look like? Do they show some of that rotation, even in the basics of like, we're going to have a safety playing deep that's actually a nickel corner, and we're going to have a safety playing in underneath coverage that's actually a safety. Like, those are the things that he hasn't been shy about that. I asked him about that last week that slot defender has to be able to do everything. And so how much do we get to see, and how much do we get to see the players doing it succeed or fail within those roles and repetitions? So I want to know all of it. I'm going to be getting 1 grain of rice in the bowl that I want, but that's okay. I'll take that and I'll run with it. And I'll write 1,000 words about it at bluewhiteillustrated.com later that day.
10 minutes ago, you said you didn't have space in your brain to care about the quarterback competition. And I was like, what could possibly else be there? And you just showed us a glimpse, and it's horrifying. So
yeah, we got transfer portal receivers. I've got by the way, I just got a new desk in my office. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on up here, and it all kind of bounces off each other. And then eventually the words come out. I don't know how they come out coherent. because it's a maelstrom in there. It looks like a hurricane with no eye. So Nate, any final thoughts on the blue-white game that you're interested in?
You're thinking of that, and I'm sitting here, and I'm in my mind the conversation of, will there be future blue-white games? Right, the changing landscape of college football, and how James Franklin brought up that it's important to the community, and right, like all of these things, and where my head is there a way for Penn State to strong arm hotels, restaurants, other football dependent businesses into getting a cut, like, because this is the most obvious of all of the like variables.
Make this sound more like a mafia shakedown, please, Nate.
But I'm saying, like, you can't. Penn State football doesn't have a choice as to whether or not it plays a home schedule, right? And so extracting money, extracting a payoff from all of those businesses during the home football season of the fall, that's not. You can't do that. You can't force that issue. But trying to say, hey guys, collectively to the Center County Chamber of Commerce, et cetera, we can either have this weekend or we cannot have this weekend moving forward. Maybe there's a $5 tax, right, on all of the hotel rooms sold, or whatever it is, right? But something that engages and creates investment into the Penn State football program and what is obviously a changing landscape of financial demand to continue its success, is an interesting dynamic that I'm considering. Anyway,
I think it's entirely. So here's the problem. I don't have any problem with the business conversations. I love understanding these things. I love learning about new stuff, but that sucks for everyone involved. Like, I'm going to editorialize the end of that. Like, when people are talking to us and complaining about how much it costs to go to games, and then suddenly we're going to talk about the blue-white game, which is free to get into. It's free to go to the blue-white game. Is it really free to go to the blue-white game? And this is what fans talk about elsewhere in the comment section. So I just want to bring that part up. And now, is it going to be even more free to come to the blue-white game? It's just very frustrating, I think, for a lot of people in that particular thought process.
Nothing is free. Do you want the football team that you root for to be good at playing football? Yes or no?
Well, let's end with this. Let's give some predictions, totally serious, absolutely concrete predictions about the game. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to give you the tone of what I was thinking of for this segment. So who wins this weekend? Dermatologists, because this is the first time anyone's really been out in the sun all spring. We live in the Northeast, so let's have some realities. People like me, I went out this weekend and I forgot that the sun exists, and I don't have as much hair as I used to, so I got very burnt. Don't forget, sunscreen's a thing this weekend. I don't want to be your mom. You can do whatever you want. But if I can help you and give a friendly reminder to wear some sunscreen Friday or Saturday so that you don't walk out like a lobster, because that is my number one takeaway from every blue-white game is, like, the football aside, everyone comes out pink out of the Beaver Stadium. It's a giant reflecting bowl. Take care of yourself. I don't know who's going to have something by the time I'm done talking. Anybody have a winner this weekend?
I think my filter's off because my face is already bright red. So,
pretty flush.
Yeah. Can't help it.
I mean, I would have an argument, but I would just say allergy pills because the pollen is not great right now. So, yeah. But no, I'm excited because you've got this is the situation where you've always got the guys buried, or not even buried, but just like new. I mean, I wrote a trimmings yesterday on the site about the feedback on true freshmen right now and early enrollees. And realistically, what is the impact that those guys can have on the season? Still a long way off, but there's some guys that have shown some nice things. So I'm looking forward to seeing Tyke Hayes and Andrew Olish and Kobe Howard and Matthew Otten and all those guys, because this is an opportunity for them to get legitimate reps in that stadium, which I think they've been in the stadium less this spring because of the construction, and it's all valuable. It all adds up. It's all pieces of the pie that they can eventually turn into better players because of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing those guys flash, and hopefully we see an extensive look at those guys.
One last programming note for you. I should have done this earlier, but we'll talk about it more the rest of the week. We're going to have the official combo party platter of the Penn State football tailgate show, 1 p.m. with 99.5 The Bus and with BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Myself and producer Kyle are going to be live on air for an hour giving you the pregame breakdown. I'll get all nerdy and tell you about the running backs and the D-line and all the things that we talked about today in 15 minutes. We'll talk about it for an expanded 1-hour show coming up before the game. You can say hi to us outside of the stadium as well. But coming up tomorrow, practice, another live show, all that stuff. It's game week here from BWI. We'll talk to you later.